What happens when a woman stops chasing and finally allows herself to be pursued? For many mature women, this is not only a choice, but a turning point, a declaration that their dignity is worth more than begging for crumbs of attention. Experience teaches them that insisting on someone who shows no reciprocity is not devotion, but depletion. They learn, sometimes through painful cycles, that pouring energy into the unwilling is like watering barren soil, effort without fruit. Instead of proving their worth through pursuit, they decide to honor themselves by stepping back, and in that act of restraint, their presence gains a power that chasing could never achieve. Psychologically, this choice marks a shift from dependency to sovereignty. A woman who no longer chases preserves her self-esteem in the face of rejection. She knows that her value is not diminished by someone else's blindness. This awareness changes the dynamic entirely. Instead of being the one left waiting for validation, she becomes the one who defines the rhythm of connection. Jung would describe this as individuation, the liberation of the self from the compulsive need to be validated by the other. By withdrawing her energy from pursuit, she reclaims it as fuel for her own life. The impact of this decision is visible in her posture, her choices, and her aura. She radiates the quiet dignity of someone who knows that attention begged for is not respect, and affection demanded is not love. Instead of chasing, she observes. Instead of insisting, she allows space. This shift unsettles those who expected her to plead, but it inspires respect from those capable of meeting her strength. Examples from everyday life show how transformative this refusal can be. A woman who once sent message after message to be noticed now waits calmly, and the silence reveals more about his priorities than words ever could. Another who once rearranged her entire schedule to prove her devotion begins to honor her own time, and suddenly he must decide if he values her enough to adjust. Another who once tolerated being an afterthought chooses to walk away, and in doing so, discovers that her absence speaks louder than her pursuit ever did. This dignified restraint is not coldness, but clarity. It communicates that she will not beg for what should be freely offered. By refusing to chase, she preserves her essence for relationships where reciprocity flows naturally. Her stillness is not emptiness. It is magnetism in its purest form. Jung would say that by stepping away from pursuit, a woman confronts and integrates her shadow, the part of her that once equated love with proving or worth with sacrifice. Having faced it, she is free. She can choose connection without the chains of desperation, and in this freedom, she finds a new kind of respect that only emerges when she no longer tries to earn it. Ultimately, the woman who refuses to chase embodies a lesson few learn early, that love grounded in dignity is more powerful than love pursued through depletion. By choosing to preserve herself, she inspires admiration even from those who once underestimated her. Her refusal to run does not make her less desirable. It makes her irresistible to the men who understand that real love is never begged for, but freely given. When a woman refuses to chase, silence itself becomes her filter. She no longer wastes energy trying to convince someone to stay. Instead, she lets absence reveal the truth. The man who truly desires her presence does not need to be pulled. He shows up. The one who is there only for convenience fades when she stops giving chase. In this way, her silence speaks more clearly than confrontation ever could. Without demanding explanations, she discovers who values her and who was only feeding on her effort. The paradox is striking. The less she runs after attention, the more her value stands out. Carl Jung would interpret this as individuation in action, the process of choosing alignment with the self rather than dependence on another's approval. By resisting the urge to pursue, she refuses to abandon herself. Her calm creates a space where projections dissolve, and in that space, a man's real intentions surface. Silence, then, is not emptiness, but revelation. It reveals his priorities, his capacity for commitment, and his willingness to meet her where she stands. The psychological impact of this stance is profound. Instead of exhausting herself with questions, "Why is he distant? What can I do to make him stay?" she shifts her focus inward. She learns to let his behavior speak for him. Every delayed reply, every missed effort, every absence is understood not as a reflection of her worth, but as a reflection of his choice. This clarity protects her energy, sparing her from the endless cycle of self-blame that pursuit creates. Everyday life provides countless examples. A woman chooses not to send the second, third, or fourth message, and suddenly his silence exposes his disinterest. Another stops trying to initiate all the plans, and the lack of initiative on his part makes her see that the bond was sustained only by her effort. Another gives space during conflict instead of chasing reconciliation, and his response, whether he seeks to rebuild or disappears, tells her exactly where his heart lies. In each case, silence clarifies more than insistence ever did. This posture aligns with the archetype of the guardian. The guardian does not beg for loyalty. She holds her ground, preserving her energy for those who come willingly. Her stillness becomes her strength because it communicates that her worth is not up for negotiation. She does not plead for permanence. She allows time and space to reveal who is capable of standing beside her without being pulled. The paradox is that her silence, which some mistake for withdrawal, is actually presence in its highest form. It says, "I know my value, and I will not waste it chasing what does not recognize it." For insecure men, this is intimidating. For mature men, it is magnetic. The absence of pursuit forces them to reveal what they might otherwise disguise with words. Ultimately, when a woman embraces silence as a filter, she discovers that clarity comes not from running after answers, but from waiting for truth to reveal itself. Jung would argue that this restraint reflects self-possession, the refusal to scatter energy outward in search of validation. And in that self-possession lies her power. The right men are drawn closer, while the wrong ones naturally fall away. Some men interpret a woman's refusal to chase as rejection, but what they are really confronting is their own insecurity. For those who have grown accustomed to being pursued, her self-sufficiency feels like a threat. They may withdraw, not because she has denied them affection, but because her independence reveals their fear of not being enough. Jung would describe this as the masculine shadow at work, the unacknowledged wounds of inadequacy and control projected onto the woman who refuses to bend. Her calm is not coldness, but it exposes what they cannot face in themselves. The psychological impact of this dynamic is telling. An immature man may retreat, labeling her as distant or uninterested, when in truth he is unsettled by her autonomy. His need for constant validation cannot survive in the presence of someone who will not provide it. By contrast, a mature man does not flee from her strength. Instead, he admires it, because he sees in her self-possession a reflection of his own. He understands that her independence does not diminish intimacy, but deepens it, creating space for authenticity. Everyday life offers countless examples of this reaction. A woman stops rearranging her world for someone inconsistent, and the man who thrived on her constant pursuit calls her cold. Another declines to plead for reassurance, and the man unsettled by her calmness accuses her of being detached. Yet another holds her boundary with dignity, and instead of meeting her in respect, he disappears. In each case, his withdrawal reveals his immaturity, not her inadequacy. This pattern illustrates Jung's idea that relationships act as mirrors. A man confronted with a woman's self-sufficiency is forced to face his own inner gaps. If he has not reconciled with his shadow, her independence awakens his fear of inadequacy. If he has, her presence inspires admiration and growth. What he feels toward her is not about her, but about the state of his own inner world. This is why her refusal to chase is such a powerful filter. It quickly reveals who is ready for a relationship rooted in respect and who is still governed by insecurity. She does not need to ask endless questions or demand clarity. His reaction to her self-sufficiency provides all the answers she needs. Men who vanish in the face of her calm were never prepared to stay. Men who lean closer in respect prove they are capable of mature love. This posture aligns with the archetype of the guardian. By refusing to scatter her energy in pursuit, she protects her essence. She is not punishing or rejecting. She is preserving. Her strength is not aggression, but clarity, the ability to see who is truly aligned with her and who is not. And because she lives this way, she no longer wastes time trying to convince someone to value what she already knows is sacred. Ultimately, the fear some men feel before a self-sufficient woman is not her burden to carry. It is their shadow to confront. Jung would say that, in holding her ground, she forces them to see what they lack, and this is precisely what makes her presence so powerful. She is not diminished by their retreat, she is clarified by it, and in that clarity, she discovers that the men who remain are the ones who see her strength not as rejection, but as the very reason she is worth admiring. Another quiet paradox emerges when a woman refuses to compete for attention. Instead of fading into the background, she often becomes more magnetic. In a culture that glorifies performance, noise, and the need to prove one's worth, her decision to remain centered disrupts expectations. She does not scramble for space, she does not raise her voice to drown others out, and she does not shape herself to secure approval. Instead, her calm detachment signals something rare: self-possession. And it is precisely this refusal to chase that awakens both respect and desire. Carl Jung would interpret this as the embodiment of individuation through the archetype of the queen. The queen does not leave her throne to argue for recognition. She embodies authority through presence alone. A woman who refuses to compete draws on this archetype. Her centrality is not arrogance, but clarity. She knows that what is hers cannot be stolen, and what is not meant for her is not worth chasing. By choosing not to compete, she reveals a dignity that cannot be manufactured. It can only be lived. The psychological effect of this refusal is striking. Men who are unaccustomed to women standing in their power may feel unsettled, but they cannot dismiss her. Her composure challenges the assumptions of those who expect pursuit. Without raising her voice, she commands attention. Without proving her worth, she inspires reverence. This paradox unsettles immaturity, yet attracts maturity, because true strength is felt most powerfully when it does not need to announce itself. Everyday life provides vivid illustrations of this magnetism. A woman at a social gathering does not try to dominate conversation, but her quiet confidence draws others to her. Another in a relationship does not compete with distractions for his focus. Instead, she allows her presence to be felt so strongly that he must decide whether he is capable of honoring it. Another in her career refuses to play into rivalry and instead pursues excellence on her own terms. And in doing so, she commands the very respect that competition rarely secures. This strength is not about passivity, but about discernment. She chooses where to invest her energy, and in choosing peace over conflict, she elevates herself above the noise. In Jungian terms, she is no longer enslaved to collective patterns of insecurity, but rooted in the self, the authentic center of her being. This rooting is what makes her presence irresistible to those capable of recognizing it. The paradox is that her absence from the race makes her the most compelling figure in it. By refusing to chase, she proves that she is not defined by others' attention. By declining to compete, she communicates that she has nothing to lose, and nothing is more magnetic than a woman who cannot be diminished. Ultimately, the magnetism of refusing to compete lies in its authenticity. Jung would argue that this is individuation fulfilled, the integration of strength and serenity into a presence that speaks louder than words. For the woman who embraces this truth, respect and desire come not because she chases them, but because she has learned the rare art of standing still in her own power. And it is this stillness that makes her unforgettable. The greatest power in a woman's refusal to chase is that it allows her to be chosen for her value, not for her insistence. When she no longer pours her energy into convincing someone to stay, she creates the space for reciprocity to reveal itself naturally. Relationships rooted in balance do not require pursuit. They flow from mutual recognition. This is why mature women often discover that by stepping back, they are not left behind, but elevated. Love that is real seeks them out. Love that fades in their absence was never love at all. Carl Jung would say that this shift reflects individuation, the moment when a woman aligns with her true self instead of clinging to projections. She no longer imagines that if she tries harder, bends further, or gives more, she will finally be validated. Instead, she embraces the truth that her wholeness is not negotiable. From this centeredness, her relationships change. Only those who can meet her without conditions remain. Her self-possession does not repel intimacy. It purifies it. The psychological impact of this posture is profound. Instead of experiencing the exhaustion of one-sided effort, she feels replenished by the balance of reciprocity. Instead of waiting for affection to be earned, she receives it as it should be given, freely. This transformation restores her energy, her dignity, and her clarity. No longer defined by chasing, she is defined by choosing. And in this choosing, she discovers that love feels lighter, steadier, and more enduring. Everyday life reflects this truth vividly. A woman who once begged for attention discovers deeper peace in solitude, only to later attract a partner who admires her independence. Another who ended a draining relationship finds herself embraced by connections that honor her without demand. Another who once confused pursuit with passion learns that authentic love arrives gently without struggle. Each of these stories reveals the same core lesson. Refusing to chase is not losing love, but making space for the right kind of love to flourish. This posture resonates with the archetype of the queen in its most sovereign form. The queen does not run after subjects. She embodies a presence that draws loyalty through respect. Her value is self-evident, and those who recognize it approach willingly. By holding her dignity as sacred, she ensures that those who enter her life come not to diminish her, but to stand beside her. In this way, her refusal to chase becomes the crown she wears, invisible yet undeniable. The paradox is that what once seemed like risk, stepping back, remaining silent, waiting, becomes her greatest form of power. Men who cannot appreciate her value drift away, but in their absence she gains clarity. Men who admire her strength step forward with intention, proving that her presence is enough without pursuit. By refusing to spend her energy chasing, she conserves it for those who are willing to meet her fully. Ultimately, the woman who chooses not to chase learns the deepest lesson of love, that her worth is not proven in pursuit, but revealed in stillness. Jung would argue that this is individuation fulfilled, the integration of strength, dignity, and self-respect into a presence that cannot be overlooked. And in this presence, she becomes irresistible not because she runs after love, but because she finally allows love to run toward her.